Hey YouTube, Red Quill here. I'm back for another video. Today I'll be going over pages 11 and 12 of the Legion webcomic. So for page 11, it was for me kind of a fun experiment working on especially the third panel. I wanted to do something kind of different for this one, and plus I was going to be able to work on including the entity in this panel, so that was kind of cool. But effectively what I wanted to do is have Frank's body look like some rough penwork while coloring his normal Legion outfit with no pen lines and just only using the paint tools. In the official telling of the story, I don't think it was ever explicitly mentioned that the influence that took over Frank in this part of the story when he attacks the cleaner was the entity itself, but I at least think it would make more sense if it was. So I guess that might be a bit of a story change on my part, but I think it's worth doing because I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to have foreshadowing of how the Legion's always, the entity's always pulling the strings for each of the killers, and eventually draws them into the world of Dead by Daylight. So for me, this was actually the first time I really tried drawing any part of a panel without pen lines, and I actually kind of like how it looks on the Legion's clothes. It's a bit more difficult for me, and for comic book art it's usually better for me to use pen first, but I think it's at least something cool it's a nice contrast to what I normally do, so I might save it for certain panels I want to have a distinct look, kind of like this one. As for the rough pen work for Frank's body underneath his clothes, that was kind of more inspired by some other artists of comics I read, mainly the artist who draws the One Punch Man manga and Berserk, which is another famous manga from Japan. They do a lot of really incredible pen work alone with even like the shading is purely done with just lines, and they actually just use real pens. I'm doing everything digital. So it was kind of just a nod to an art style I really like. Granted, I'm not nearly as talented in it, but it was just, again, just to kind of emphasize that this is a big moment for Frank. I wanted it to contrast most of how I draw the other panels. So for page 12. So it'll be interesting to see if I ever get any feedback on this one, because I can see people either loving it or hating it. On Frank's mask and the first two panels, I wanted to make it look more like he was a feral animal, since he's charging, about to attack the cleaner. And on top of that, I wanted to give a nod to his perk for Frenze in the game. And just in doing so, since there's feral in the name, I thought it'd be kind of cool to make him look like a feral beast, at least briefly, as he's charging forward. So hopefully it looks okay. I don't really like how the shading is on his mask on the first panel, but I kind of needed it to be really dark in order to give the white highlights I was going for where his eyes and mouth. I did like, though, on the first panel, how instead of the usual smile his mask has, I just only showed the lines in between that mark the teeth on the mask, making it look a little more creepy, which I think is a good thing for this part. So one thing you might notice is I completely removed any real background elements. On the first panel, yeah, I include some speed lines, but for this moment, I really just want the focus to be on the characters involved, obviously mainly just Frank and the cleaner. So I wanted them to be the emphasis, plus it's always nice to have a easy time just filling in the backgrounds. I'm always down for a easier and faster page. So it's kind of cool though at this page, mainly because I finally get to some of the main action of the story. In some ways, this is kind of the climax, because it's really when the members of Legion begin to step beyond just being normal people and truly do a nearly unforgivable crime. I finally did get to work on more dynamic poses in the scene because a lot of the story up to this point has really just been them standing around and doing small tasks. Hopefully, it looks nice enough that it looks like a decent action page. I know there's not a ton of movement even still, but it's at least good practice for me, and I enjoy doing it. Granted, there's always room for improvement though, but yeah, overall, I think it's a good page for what it is, and it's definitely good practice moving forward. I also like how the blurred effect on the knife going downwards is on the last panel. Granted, I did something similar back when I had Frank swinging a bat, but I think it's for me, a good way of showing speed lines, and I think I'll probably keep using it for future projects. My main criticism on the page would definitely be on the last panel, how I drew the cleaner. His position at this point is pretty awkward, and I probably should have at least drawn a small portion of Julie to still indicate she's next to him. But again, as I've complained in other videos, I try to give myself a fairly strict timeline on getting these done, so I didn't think it was worth it for me to redraw the cleaner's body and reposition him. So I just went with what I had. I do find though, like once you start coloring a page, even if your pen work is really bad, at least it still looks okay, even if the position of the characters is a little awkward. Well, that's probably enough of me mumbling around for this video, so I'll save any other comments I have for the next one, where I'll plan on covering pages 13 and 14. Man, things are winding down. It's exciting. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope everyone has a great week. Bye.